Hi, Wes here. Welcome to Splash. I want to talk about how to become a better reader. So, it's no surprise that reading is important for many reasons. For one, it improves your speaking and it improves your listening. Speaking is what we call the output, and reading is the input. The more you consume, the easier it becomes for you to produce. Language works in the way that we, in the first stages of our life, have a lot of input. Little children don't speak until a certain age. A child is simply absorbing a lot of the language that they hear, and they bit by bit they begin to produce that language. So the principle works the same in adult age. It's first we listen and then we begin to produce. So reading is that way for grown-ups to increase their input. Even if you're not looking into the dictionary all the time while reading, it's really, really important that you're reading. Sometimes you don't understand a lot of words. So suppose you take some kind of advanced level text and you see that there are words in there that you don't understand. But if you just ignore those words and read for general information, you'll see that you understand pretty much the whole of the text. Of course, when you're just a beginning reader and your level is, say, A1, but you're trying to read the text from B2 or C2, like super advanced, you may run into a bit of a trouble because the percentage of words that you don't know is greater than the ones that you do know. So your understanding of that text will be really, really skewed. You may still get a flimsy idea what it's talking about, but chances are you'll get it wrong. But when you take a text that is your level, in which you have about 60 to 70 words that you already know, then it's easier for you to understand the main idea of the text without misinterpretations or misunderstandings. So usually about 60 or 70% is quite enough for us to understand the whole text. Even as native speakers, we read texts from our own language, and there are words in there that we don't know, we don't understand, but we don't feel shocked. We just skip over them, or we can get curious and look them up. Thank God we have a lot of technology right now. You can just, with the tap of the finger on the screen, you can find the meaning of any word you want. So reading is that basic skill that allows you to increase not only your vocabulary, but also improve your grammar. Patterns in language are always repetitive. Some of them have higher frequency, some of them have a lower frequency, but the more you read, the higher the probability of you running into the same grammar patterns. And then the more they are repeated in your head, the more they become part of your own language. And then sometime later you start to produce something, and you see that it kind of pops up in your head. You remember it from somewhere, somehow, and you know how to use it. It works the same with native speakers. While we're in school, we learn new grammar patterns. Even when we are 11 and 12, 13, we learn something new from the language. We learn the grammar that we didn't know before. We learn to construct sentences that we didn't know how to do, that how to construct when we were 5. So the more you read, the better you become at understanding and actually producing correct grammar. Of course, you read quality texts, you read newspaper articles, you read fiction, although fiction can be a little bit more difficult because there are words in there that we don't use all the time, every day, maybe only for the GRE or for the SAT tests. I'd say that reading is that basic skill that helps you learn to speak without necessarily being around the people. Sometimes we are limited in our resources and our social surroundings, and we just don't have the people to talk to at the moment, but we can always turn to reading. And me personally, I try to read every day. I try not to revert to watching videos all the time, although, of course, it's increasingly dominant in our society and people read less. But still, I go to Google and I read articles. Plus, there is something about text, written text, that you can't capture in a video. Videos have different resources, and reading, that instrument that the writer puts everything into. Unlike video, where he's focused on other things, the backgrounds, the image, and everything else, and the text becomes not that well worked through, because there are other things to work on, and they just want to save time. But when you're just a writer and you're doing nothing but writing, you have all the time in the world to work on your text, to polish it, to make it professional, and also complex. So written text designed for reading is really, really great. So I would encourage you to read more. Read more newspaper articles, whatever interests you, whatever you find of interest. There are articles on really common topics from show business, but they're written by really, really, really good professional reporters and journalists. If your level of English is pretty high, you can use reading as a tool to learn new words. You're reading a book and you're highlighting that new word in the page. If you're reading an ebook, you can just put them in a dictionary and make a list or your own little glossary of new words, and you can go back to that glossary, read through the definitions, or even better, use examples. So it's really good to use examples when you're reading a book, or just write out that word or copy it and paste it, not just in isolation, but in that sentence. You put it in context. It helps you understand how it works in the sentence, how it works in collocations or with prepositions. So one of the things you can do to improve your reading is take a book, preferably a hard copy. I don't know, whatever works for you, but as long as it has page numbers. And then you start reading that book, and once you come across a new word, a word that is new to you, a word that you don't know, a word that you don't understand, or maybe you've heard it before, have a vague idea what it means, but you can't tell for sure. So better write that word out in your little dictionary and use a definition of that word, a simple definition, maybe three or four words, explaining the meaning of that word, or a synonym. Use a word that you already know, a more simple word to define that one. So, and then after a period of time, you go back to that dictionary and you see how many of those words you still remember. So, and then you read that part of the text again, and you see if that text gives you a better understanding of the meaning, something you did not catch before when you were reading it for the first time. This is one of the ways. So there are, of course, many ways. Simple drilling, rote learning, whatever works for you. Anyways, it's a great way to learn and to practice your memory. So, but remember that words should not be stored in your head as lists. Sometimes it's more complex than that. The words that become clear to us, that we finally understand and grasp fully in terms of their meaning, in terms of all of their shades of meaning and everything, they go down into our subconscious, into our long-term memory. And once we are in a situation that we're trying to explain something, if that word is in there, it will come out. We'll not have to look for it. I will not go into that right now. It's more cognitive science right there. But reading is really, really helpful. It's important for many aspects of our life. It improves our listening. It improves our speaking. The more you read, the better speaker you are. And of course, and if you're working with that dictionary, those words will finally get activated. And we talked about our activation principle. If you want to check that video about the activation principle, I'll put it in the link below. Reading is a great pastime. I believe reading will never, ever become obsolete. We will need written language as long as we live. It's a way to get information. And sometimes it's more informative, it's more powerful than watching videos, because there are differences between speaking and listening, between spoken thought and written thought. They're expressed differently. You would argue with me, but you can discuss that with me if you want in the comments. But still, reading will always remain a great, great thing for generations and generations to come. It was that way in the past, it is that way right now, and it will be. So I wish you to stay on board with that one. Keep reading. Why don't you just try now?